It is a duty.
For the times they are changing.
From Amazon Prime's star-studded CIA thriller Jack Ryan to Apple and Disney's foray into the streaming world, welcome to the show where we're covering all that's new on the small screen with Diptyque Laurent. Hi, Diptyque.
Hi, Olivia.
Now, first up, Olivia Colman takes over from Claire Foy as Queen Elizabeth II in the latest season of The Crown, and that's on Netflix.
That's right. The sumptuous, soapy The Crown, the Emmy Award-winning show is back for a third season. Queen Elizabeth, we find her now in her late 30s, early 40s. The show has been recast for realism. So as you said, Olivia Colman taking over as Queen Elizabeth. It's not even her first time playing a queen. You'll remember that she won an Oscar this year for her role as Queen Anne in The Favourite, in the film The Favourite. Helena Bonham Carter is her sister, Princess Margaret, and Tobias Menzies as Prince Philip. Take a look.
This country was still great when I came to the throne. On days like today, ask yourself, in the time I've been on the throne, what have I actually achieved?
For the times they are changing.
We have all made sacrifices and suppressed who we are. It is not a choice. It is a duty.
For the times they are changing.
Okay, so this is season 3 of that hugely popular show. There's already a season 4 in the works. It's clearly got great mileage. Let's focus on this one, though. Season 3, what do you make of it so far?
Well, it's just as lavish and decadent as the previous seasons, Olivia. It's so well acted and it's gorgeously filmed. We're in the 60s and 70s now. You sense these winds of change brewing in the air. Winston Churchill has died. Harold Wilson, a staunch Republican, is now in power, and England's staring down at the barrel of a very crippling economic crisis. But really, the beauty of the show is that chronological exploration of the modern monarchy. Look out in this season for an episode that really beautifully deals with the 1966 Aberfan tragedy, when a coal waste tip buried an elementary school in South Wales, killing nearly 150 people, most of them children. We also see a different Queen Elizabeth. Coleman's interpretation is that of a stern, serious, sullen, even a woman who really suffers in her role, quite unlike Claire Foy's queen, who was much younger, much more joyous as well. There's also relative unknowns cast to play Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles in the early part of their courtship. There's a lot of interest in that. Helena Bonham Carter, she just dazzles. She's so good as this rebellious, free-spirited Queen Margaret.
Born to play Queen Margaret,
exactly, born
I think.
To play her.
Now, success with series like The Crown might have Netflix feeling very secure at the moment, but there are 2 new kids on the block when it comes to streaming platforms. They've both launched this month, and they're threatening to shake up the way we consume television.
That's right. It remains to be seen if people will actually fork out more money for yet more streaming platforms. Apple rolled out its Apple TV Plus streaming platform earlier this month. Disney is rolling out a limited version of its own platform this month as well. And this is really just the beginning of the streaming wars. Apple and Disney and a whole host of other streaming platforms are looking to not just compete with Netflix and Amazon, but also change the way that we consume television. Catherine Viette takes a look.
With shows like Black Mirror and Grace and Frankie, Netflix continues its push into creating original programming. It's been 10 years since the streaming giant shook up the marketplace. Since then, other streaming services like Hulu and Amazon Prime have moved into producing original content too. Hulu with the popular Handmaid's Tale, and Amazon with Transparent and Good Omens. And now that field is about to get a lot more crowded with the arrival of HBO Max, Apple, and Disney+.
Okay, everybody, let's take it from the top.
The new competitors promise to shake up the landscape as they reclaim their back catalog of films and TV series.
Netflix will lose a number of works it labeled originals. But in fact, these weren't works produced by Netflix, but bought by the service. And now they'll end up somewhere else. So the issue is, does Netflix have enough of its own TV series to continue to attract viewers? The answer is no. Netflix doesn't have enough to attract so many people, but it does have enough content to continue to attract some people.
Netflix will lose Friends and The Big Bang Theory to HBO Max, the new service from Warner Media, and Hulu will lose South Park. But with each new service comes yet another subscription fee, and it's unlikely all these platforms will survive. To stand out from the crowded field, some services are returning to the traditional viewing schedule of new episodes weekly, instead of making the whole series available at once to be binge-watched.
So as well as their English language offer, Disney's launching a separate French version of its platform next year. But Apple TV Plus is a global launch. Looking at the early content, what do you think?
Well, look, there were some interesting shows in the early part of their launch. Servant, that's a show co-produced by M. Night Shyamalan. Very creepy show about a secretive young nanny who's hired to look after a couple's baby, only that the baby is actually a very lifelike doll that was given to the couple after they lost their infant. It's Apple's foray into the horror genre. Remains to be seen if it's a hit or miss. Then there's, of course, the morning show, Olivia. It's packed a lot of punch, but to be honest, it's left me feeling a little bit ambivalent. Jennifer Aniston, no doubt, is excellent. She plays this harried, middle-aged breakfast show host trying to deal with the fallout of the sex assault scandal involving her co-host, who was played excellently by Steve Carell. But it was definitely entertaining. I just found the show a little bit too on the nose, too self-aware, too earnest in its Me Too message.
It's true that Me Too message was pushed really hard in the series, the episodes that I saw. But I think the news side of things, as news people getting up so early in the morning, we can definitely relate to some of the behind-the-scenes look. Now, another series that they're showcasing is something entirely different that I probably can't identify with because it's set in the 19th century.
Exactly. It's called Dickinson, and for me, actually, it was a surprise. It's a devilishly anachronistic dark comedy that reimagines the fiercely independent Emily Dickinson, played by Haley Steinfeld, as an angsty 2019 millennial, but living in the 1850s. It's surprisingly sweet, very novel, and so weird. So it's definitely going to attract a lot of people. Apple's new content in general does pack a lot of punch, but the big question is really how they'll fare in the coming months. Are they going to follow a quantity over quality strategy privileged by, for instance, Netflix, or will they stick to these expensive star-studded productions?
Yeah, and speaking of star-studded, we saw a lot of press from Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon around the launch of the morning show. So, I mean, others are scrambling to keep up. It's no coincidence that Amazon Prime has dropped one of its biggest hits, Jack Ryan, on the same day as Apple Plus launched.
That's right. John Krasinski, a.k.a. Jack Ryan, and Wendell Pierce as James Greer return for this new season. Season pursue nuclear weapons, Russia, and a shady Venezuelan president who's trying to stay in power as protests for change brewing in the country. Take a look.
What's the most major threat on the world stage? Venezuela is the single greatest resource of oil on the planet. So why is this country in the midst of one of the greatest humanitarian crises in history?
It's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound?
This ends up in the news, it's just going to cause panic.
In nuclear Venezuela, you will not hear about in the news because we'll already be dead.
Business or pleasure, Jack?
I'm here for work.
So great pairing there. John Krasinski, he's this typical action hero. Wendell Pierce is James Greer. He's Jack's gruff boss with a checkered past. He's multilingual. He's a practicing Muslim. He has a heart condition in this season. So he's a very layered character. In fact, I caught up with Wendell Pierce last month at Comic-Con in Paris. Take a listen to what he had to say about his character.
Contrary to what has previously been portrayed in Hollywood, the CIA is a lot more diverse in real life than expected. When I went there to start doing research for this, that was one of the things that surprised me. And then I got to know a particular man, whose name I can't say, who has been a consultant and a mentor to me and introduced me to so many people who are so much like James Greer. And then you realize, wow, our perceptions of who these officers are so far away from the reality. And so that gave me a real responsibility to make sure that portrayal was there for them.
So in this season, you have a newcomer, Noomi Rapace, as a mysterious German spy, so that adds a bit of spice. Overall, season 2 is a pretty solid season. Even if there are a lot of subplots, you do get lost in it sometimes. But look, Amazon's renewed it already for a third season, even before this season came out. So that's definitely a sign of the faith that the streaming platform has in the show.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt as to how successful that's going to be. Now, finally from you, a new German series on Netflix, which looks at a group of students trying to revolt against the rise of fascism and racism in the country.
That's right. This is a 6-episode drama, teen drama, that opened to a fairly quiet release on Netflix. It's about a group of misfit teenagers who begin an idealistic revolt against the rising tide of nationalism in Germany. Their movement turns into something far more uncontrollable and sinister. The series was actually based on a 1981 book, itself inspired by a real-life event called the Third Wave Social Movement Experiment. It was back in the 1960s, a Californian high school teacher recreated the conditions of Nazi Germany to explain to his students how German society became blinded by the Nazis during the Second World War. I've seen a bit of this show. There's plenty of, high school drama and romance and idealism to draw in the younger viewers. It is a show that deals with youth, social unrest, power of the people, protests. So definitely something that's very topical right now.
As always, we're seeing the headlines inspiring drama and art in general. Dipti, thanks so much for joining us this week. We'll leave you with a sneak peek of We Are the Wave, the German original series that's already out on Netflix. Otherwise, do check out our website for the latest in arts and culture, and you can keep up with us on social media too. There's more news coming up on France 24 just after this.
Je mehr Leute wir sind, desto mehr können wir erreichen. Und aus der Welle wird irgendwann ein riesiger Tsunami.
Listening, you're not listening.